Yo, this is the Man Space Podcast where we are redefining manhood. I'm your host, Kyle Torrey. And this space is for men and by men. Yeah, this podcast is for men and by men. But ladies, you are invited as well. Listen, pull up a chair. Find out a little bit more about what your man is dealing with, your husband, your uncle, your father, any man that's in your life. This is a space where you get to freely get to hear what we're dealing with and what we're carrying. But today's topic is going to be on communication. Yeah, communication. It's funny to me because a lot of the stereotypes around men and communication is all negative, that men aren't good communicators. But actually, research shows that men are very effective communicators. But here's the problem. We're effective communicators when it comes to money. We're effective communicators when it comes to sports and things that we're into. But oftentimes, when it comes to our feelings and what we're carrying, that is when we choose to shut down. Hear me. Unhealthy communication is devastating to our relationships. I'm going to say that again. Unhealthy communication is devastating to our relationships. Whether that's the relationship with your girl, whether that's the relationship with your children, whether that's the relationship with a family member or a friend. Listen, if we can't find the words to effectively let people know where we are and what we're carrying and what we're dealing with and what we're struggling with, then hear me, our relationships just won't be healthy. See, when we don't communicate, we create barriers to intimacy. We create barriers between us and the people that we love. Because here's the reality. How is your family member supposed to know you? How is your girl, your wife, and your child supposed to know you if you never communicate what's really going on the inside? Yeah, if you never really communicate what you're thinking. Listen, it's easy to manage how people view you when they're not close to you. But those who are behind the veil, those who get to see you every day, those who get to see you at your weakest moments, those are the ones who it becomes difficult to hide who we really are. And that's the problem, us as men, is that we're trying to hide who we really are. Why? Because we don't feel safe. We don't feel safe with being fully exposed, even with those who are the closest to us, those who say they love us. See, one of the biggest issues for men is that we not only struggle with communicating how we're feeling, but we also struggle with communicating what we need. Yeah, what we're worried about, what our concerns are. And here's the reality. Those who are around us, who love us, that's the information they really want to know. Yeah, they don't want to just know about your favorite sports team. They don't want to just know about your hobbies. They don't want to just know where you're traveling on your next vacation. They want to know the most intimate things about you. They want to know if you trust them enough with that information. But again, it goes back to safety, because here's the reality. As men, we don't feel comfortable being that exposed, especially around those folks who we feel like need to see us as strong. Yeah, the reality is, men, we associate communicating about our feelings as weakness. And we don't want to look weak, especially to our children or our wife or our girlfriend. Yeah, we don't want to seem weak. We can almost handle being seen as weak outside the home, but we definitely don't want to seem weak before them, because the expectation as a man is that we're a protector. The expectation as a man is that we're strong. The expectation as a man is that we got it all together, that we're providers, that we know what the next step is down the road. When the reality is, oftentimes we don't. But here's the thing. Communicating about how you feel, it's not a weakness. It actually takes courage. Yeah, it takes courage. I was actually, I had put a post up on my podcast. I think it was about this last one about mental health. And somebody communicated that I will never tell people how I really feel because they'll use it against me. And I get what he was saying, but that doesn't lead to health. That leads to depression. That leads to toxic ways of coping. And listen to me, if communicating how we feel, if you learn how to do it, it will affect your home life. It actually makes life easier. When those around you know exactly how you're feeling and what you're carrying, it helps them to navigate in such a way to support the one that they love. We got to get comfortable with words like I'm hurting. Words like I'm afraid. Words like I'm confused. Words like that was embarrassing. Words like I'm overwhelmed. Words like I'm lonely. Here's one. I'm nervous or I have anxiety. I remember that word anxiety, man. To be honest, I just felt like that was a word that men just didn't say. And after going to counseling and really doing the work when it comes to figuring out how I'm actually feeling, what I learned is that my life was filled with anxiety. My life was filled with being nervous about, am I making the right decision? Why? Because People are counting on me. My wife, my kids, they counting on me. Oftentimes my friends are counting on me. I'm typically the one who's always initiating. I'm typically the one who's always leading. Therefore, if I make the mistake, it's going to affect everyone. So I have anxiety when making these decisions and hoping that it just works out. If you want to change the relationship with your wife, if you want to change the relationship with your girl, you want to change the relationship with your friends and with your kids, then hear me. You have to learn how to communicate not only how you're feeling, but what you need. And as a man, it's hard to say that you need something. We've never been taught to communicate what we need. Yeah, I never heard a man growing up say that they need another person. No, because we're taught to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. We're taught to be self-made men. All the men on all the videos, all the movies that I saw, they went out and they got it. They was the superheroes of the story. They didn't ask for help. Growing up, I didn't even know what that looked like. For a man to ask someone else for help. But here's the reality, we have needs. Listen, if we're honest, we want to be emotionally supported. We want to not feel judged. We want to have space to make mistakes. We want to be loved. We want our character to be protected, especially by our friends and our women. Oftentimes growing up, the only identifier to how a man was feeling in our lives was typically anger. Yeah, and for a lot of men, that was a traumatic experience. A lot of times it was them putting their hands on your mother. A lot of times it was them putting their hands on you or your siblings. And you could identify that. You knew exactly how your parent felt in that moment. But the reality is those men in your life, they had a lot of emotions that they were dealing with leading up to that moment before they ever got there, that they didn't communicate, that nobody ever knew about. Listen, we're going to continue the same patterns of trauma in our life if we don't fix this. If we don't open up our mouths and use introspection to be able to communicate what we are feeling and what we need in the moment. But on the other end, a lot of us grew up in single family homes with a mother and aunties who communicated about their emotions maybe a lot. And so what we chose to do, if that is how women communicate, then as a man, then I'm supposed to do the opposite. I'm supposed to not communicate about how I'm feeling. We go to the other end of the spectrum and we don't say a thing. See, it's hard for people to know what you need when all that you have taught them is that you can do everything, that you got it. That's one of the biggest issues that I see with men, that I hear from them all the time. Anytime there's a space where somebody actually can tell that you need something, you say, I got it. When you don't, I got it is taking so many men to a dark place. I got it is the reason why many men have lost their jobs or lost their homes or made a bad financial decision, because they're out here trying to do more than what they're actually able to carry. I've seen men break their backs. I've seen men drive themselves and put themselves in the hospital trying to take on the full load of the home financially because they're not willing to tell their wives, babe, I just need a little help. Not that I need you to carry the load, not that I need you to be the primary breadwinner, but I'm out here trying to get it. I'm out here having a difficult time. Maybe I just lost my job, or I'm just having a difficult time making ends meet. I might need some help. So here's the solution for today. As a man, you need to take some time and maybe get a pencil and a journal out and write down how you're feeling. Go to ChatGPT or go to Google and just type out words, emotional words, and see which ones resonate with you. Just write down all the emotional words that you feel like pertain to your life. Second thing I would tell you to do, sit down with that friend. Sit down with your girl, sit down with your kids and practice using those words. I heard about a couple that actually, when they come in the house, the first thing they did was communicate where they were, how they were feeling. So what it did was it informed to the other person how they needed to show up that day. Yeah, if you're a little bit more stressed out and on edge, maybe I'm not going to be overly talkative. Maybe I'm not going to nitpick you. Maybe I'm not going to give you that complaint today. Maybe I'll hold on that till tomorrow. Maybe that person who loves you might do something special to help to cheer you up. Maybe they'll cook you a meal. Maybe they'll take you to your favorite restaurant. Maybe they tell you, let's just go for a walk. But when you don't communicate, what I'll guarantee is that it's going to lead to conflict. You all being separated, going in total different directions. You shouldn't want that for your relationship. Give the person who loves you an opportunity to show up for you. The problem is that we're scared that they won't. Yeah, one of the reasons why we don't communicate our needs is because we're afraid that the person who says that they care about you won't show up the way that you need them to. So again, we play it safe. And playing it safe is killing us. It's hurting our emotional health, and it's hurting the very relationships we're trying to keep. We got to do the work. Here's the other reality. If you have kids, you're teaching those kids how to communicate. Yeah, don't think that because you're not communicating that they're not learning. No, they're learning to not communicate. And so what do you want to do? You want to teach them how to communicate with their words, or you want to teach them how to communicate with silence? There's no neutral. They're either going to learn to keep their mouths shut and deal with their emotions in toxic ways, keeping it all in, carrying that load, hurting themselves emotionally, hurting themselves in their relationships, or they're going to learn how to properly do it. Now, here's the question. Are you going to teach them? Are you going to be the one who breaks the cycle of men in your life that actually teaches their children how to communicate effectively to those around them so that people can show up for them and to love them well? I remember one time when I was around my boys who I grew up with, and man, you know, our dynamic is just everything is jokes. Like everything we communicate, everything come back to some sort of joke, man. We have a good time. And there was a particular area where they, said something in a group setting around a bunch of people that kind of hit me in a space. Yeah, it kind of hit me, man. It kind of embarrassed me in some ways. And talking about some old stuff, some old stories, but it was in a group setting, you know what I mean? And I ain't like it. I felt like it was a little bit crossing the line, and I laughed it off. You know what I mean? I'm trying to save face, so I laughed it off. And I remember my girl at the time was with me. We got in the car and we were driving, and she asked me, she said, man, how did you feel about when they said X, Y, Z? And I was like, oh, I'm cool. That's just what we do, man. And, you know, we do that. You know what I mean? And she was like, nah, I don't feel like you're being honest. Yeah, she said, if I was you, that would have bothered me. And I could tell when they said it, I know you, like that affected you. And we probably went 15, 20 minutes of me sticking up for them, saying, oh, they ain't mean it this way. And oh, it was cool. You know, I've said these things. She kept saying, look, you're making excuses so that you don't have to deal with the fact that your friends did something to hurt you. And man, that rocked me. That rocked me. And she said, if they're really your friends, why can't you tell them that and it be okay? And number one thing came to my mind. I'm like, man, how weak am I going to look to my boys telling them that something they said hurt me? But anyway, we went back and forth, man. To make a long story short, I ended up hitting them up, man. We were all together, man. And I communicated, man. We just had a moment. Say, hey, man, I want to tell y'all something, man. When y'all tell that particular story, man, it's cool when it's just us, man. But in group settings, man, when y'all said it the other day, man, that was embarrassing, man. That kind of hurt me. And do you know that each one of them responded with apologies? They said they didn't realize it. One of them said, man, I did realize after we said it and was kind of thinking, man, that wasn't cool. Man, and that meant the world to me. Like, and to this day, they've never made that. They've never told that story, never said that thing ever again. Now, we'll talk about it when we all together. But man, they showed up for me. And I was scared. I thought they was going, in my mind, I was nervous about them, man, you know, saying I was weak, saying that, man, get out of here with all that, man. Don't be no, you know, all the names that we typically call each other in men type settings. I was worried about all that. But my boys, my homies, my dudes, my team, they showed up. And they made a change in their behavior. I trust them at a greater level than I ever have before, because now I trust them with my emotions. If you want a more healthy environment with your family and with your kids and with your friends, then you got to take the time and do the work to learn how to communicate what you need from those around you and how you're feeling. Because here's the thing, when you tied to a feeling, it doesn't matter what happened. When you tied to a feeling, somebody who cares about you, they're going to change their behavior and do what's best for you in that relationship. Listen, do me a favor. If you know another man who you feel like needs to hear this, man, share it with him. Go to my YouTube, like, subscribe, and share it with him. Because listen, we have to change what manhood looks like. That's episode 5. I'm out.